Captain Jake Morrison stood at the wide viewing window of the diplomatic station New Geneva, watching Jupiter's swirling storms in the distance. The massive gas giant looked peaceful from here, its red spot turning slowly like a lazy eye. Jake had been stationed here for 3 years now, and the view never got old. Behind him, the station buzzed with activity as beings from 7 different worlds worked together in harmony. Dr. Lisa Carter walked up beside him, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Jake and smiled. Lisa was the best xenobiologist Earth had ever produced, and she had spent the last 12 years studying every alien species in the Galactic Council. Her work had helped humans understand their new neighbors better than anyone thought possible. "Another successful mediation session today," Lisa said, taking a sip of her coffee. "The Vorthak and Sauridians finally agreed on the mining rights for the Kepler system." Jake nodded and drank his coffee. It was real Earth coffee, not the synthetic stuff most stations served. "Humans seem to be good at this," he said, "getting different species to talk instead of fight." Commander Ryan Brooks joined them at the window. Ryan was responsible for security on the station, though his job was mostly ceremonial these days. Peace had lasted for 12 years, and everyone expected it to continue forever. The 3 humans watched as alien ships moved in and out of the station's docking bays. Sleek Vorthak vessels with their perfect geometric designs, living Zephyrian. Ships that pulsed with bioluminescent lights, and the graceful curved hulls of Delphian waterships. "Hard to believe we almost didn't make it into the council," Ryan said. "Remember the early days when they thought we were too aggressive?" Lisa laughed. "Those days are long gone. Now they call us when other species can't agree on anything. We've become the galaxy's therapists." The irony wasn't lost on any of them. Humans had joined the Galactic Council as the newest and most primitive species. The other 6 races had technology thousands of years ahead of Earth's best science. The Vorthak were masters of logic and mathematics. The Zephyrians shared a collective mind that could solve problems instantly. The Delphians controlled water and weather on a planetary scale. The crystalline Nexari could manipulate matter at the atomic level. The gas-dwelling ethereals existed in multiple dimensions at once. The reptilian Sauridians had conquered death itself through advanced medical science. Yet somehow, humans had found their place. They brought something none of the other species possessed: the ability to understand emotions and find compromise. When the logical Vorthak couldn't see past their calculations, humans helped them remember that other species didn't think the same way. When the Sauridians became too focused on their individual glory, humans showed them the value of working together. When any 2 species reached a deadlock, they called for human mediators. Lieutenant Amy Foster's voice came over the communication system. "Captain Morrison, we're receiving the daily reports from all human colonies." Jake walked over to the communication center where Amy sat surrounded by screens showing data from dozens of human worlds. Earth's children had spread across the galaxy, building farms on fertile planets, research stations around interesting stars, and trading posts on busy space routes. Every human settlement was thriving under the protection of the Galactic Council. "Everything looks good, Captain," Amy reported. "New Eden reports record harvests this season. The research station at Wolf 359 has made another breakthrough in quantum mechanics. Colony Ship 7 just found a perfect world for settlement near the Andromeda border." Jake smiled. This was the golden age his grandfather had dreamed about, when humans first reached for the stars. No wars, no conflicts, just peaceful expansion and scientific progress. Human children grew up learning alien languages alongside English. Human scientists worked with beings whose minds operated in ways no human could fully understand. Human artists created works that inspired species across the galaxy. Dr. Ben Parker, humanity's chief scientist on the station, joined the group. Ben had been working with alien researchers for 8 years, sharing knowledge and learning things that revolutionized human understanding of the universe. "The Nexari just shared their latest research on crystal computing," he said excitedly. This could change everything about how we build starships. The humans gathered around as Ben explained the new technology. It was typical of how things worked. Now, the aliens shared their advanced science freely with humans, and humans helped them see new ways to use their own discoveries. Trust flowed both ways, creating innovations none of them could achieve alone. As the station's day cycle shifted toward evening, the humans prepared for another council session tomorrow. They would sit with representatives from 6 ancient civilizations, each one capable of destroying planets or reshaping solar systems. Yet these powerful beings looked to humans for guidance when their own abilities weren't enough. Jake looked around at his team and felt proud of what humanity had accomplished. They had started as the weak newcomers, barely understanding the technology around them. Now they were valued partners, respected for their unique contributions to galactic civilization. None of them suspected that their alien partners had been watching and planning. None of them realized that 12 years of peace had been 12 years of careful study. None of them knew that tomorrow would bring the end of everything they had built together. The station's lights dimmed as the artificial night began, and the humans settled in for what they thought would be just another peaceful evening among the stars. Admiral Kate Sullivan walked into the council chamber with confidence, carrying the weekly reports from human territories. The massive circular room held 7 seats arranged around a holographic display that could show any part of the galaxy. Kate had sat in the human seat hundreds of times before, always welcomed by the other species as a valued partner in galactic governance. The Vorthak representative, Logician Prime Zeth, sat perfectly still in his geometric chair. His gray skin showed no emotion, but his large black eyes tracked Kate's movement. Beside him, the Zephyrian Collective's current speaker, a creature that looked like flowing liquid mercury, rippled with what Kate had learned to recognize as their version of a greeting. The other representatives were already in place. The Delphian ambassador floated in a tank of water that somehow stayed perfectly contained without walls. The Nexari delegates sparkled like a living diamond, their crystalline form refracting light in beautiful patterns. The ethereal representative was barely visible, existing as a shimmer in the air that hurt human eyes to look at directly. The Sauridian general sat tall and proud, his scaled hide bearing the scars of ancient battles. "Welcome, Admiral Sullivan," Logician Prime Zeth said in his perfectly modulated voice. "We have important matters to discuss today." Kate took her seat and activated the human display screens. "I have the colony reports ready for review. All human settlements continue to prosper under council protection." The Vorthak's eyes seemed to focus more intently on her. "Yes, we have been reviewing human progress extensively. In fact, that is precisely what we wish to discuss." Something in his tone made Kate pause. In 12 years of council meetings, she had never heard that particular inflection from a Vorthak. They were always logical, always predictable. This sounded different. The holographic display activated, but instead of showing star charts or trade routes, it displayed what looked like technical schematics. Kate recognized some of the designs as human technology, but other parts were unfamiliar. "These are interesting documents," the Sauridian general said, his voice carrying a low growl. "Human weapons research, hidden from the council." Kate's blood went cold. "What weapons research? Humans haven't developed military technology since joining the council. We agreed to focus only on peaceful sciences." The Zephyrian speaker's form rippled with what Kate now realized wasn't a greeting but barely contained aggression. Evidence suggests otherwise. These plans show planet-killing devices, fleet destroyers, weapons that violate 17 different galactic treaties. The display zoomed in on specific sections of the schematics. Kate stared in shock as she recognized elements from human research projects, but twisted and modified into something sinister. The quantum resonance studies from Wolf 359 had been turned into plans for a reality disruption bomb. The gravity manipulation research from Europa appeared as blueprints for stellar collapse weapons. "This is impossible," Kate said, standing up from her chair. "These aren't our designs. Someone has altered our research data." The Nexari delegate's crystalline form pulsed with cold light. "Human deception runs deeper than expected. Analysis indicates systematic preparation for galactic conquest." Kate felt the weight of 6 alien gazes upon her. These beings who had been friends and partners for 12 years now looked at her with suspicion and fear. "You have to listen to me. This isn't real. Someone has fabricated this evidence." The ethereal representative spoke, their voice coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Human emotional responses confirm guilt patterns. Deception detected. In vocal stress analysis, the trap was perfect. Every human reaction to the false accusations was being interpreted as proof of guilt. Kate's shock and denial were seen as the responses of someone caught in a lie. Dr. Ben Parker's voice came through her communication device. "Admiral, something's wrong. My research files have been accessed and modified. Someone's been in our systems." The Vorthak heard the transmission. "Additional evidence of human security breaches. Conspiracy confirmed across multiple human facilities." Kate realized with growing horror that this had been planned for months, maybe years. While humans thought they were building trust and friendship, the aliens had been gathering data, studying human research, and preparing this moment. "The evidence is conclusive," Logician Prime Zeth announced. "Humanity represents a clear and present danger to galactic security. Under Council Emergency Protocol 7, immediate action is required." Kate had never heard of Emergency Protocol 7. "What action? What are you talking about?" The Sauridian general leaned forward, his teeth visible in what wasn't quite a smile. "Protective custody for all human populations. Immediate containment to prevent the execution of these weapon plans." The words hit Kate like a physical blow. "You're talking about imprisoning every human in the galaxy." "Necessary measures for galactic survival," the Delphian ambassador said, their watery form shifting with agitation. "Human aggression patterns. Require immediate intervention." Kate activated her emergency communicator, trying to reach the human colonies. Static filled the channel. The aliens had already begun jamming human communications. Commander Lucy Hayes burst into the council chamber. "With 3 security officers. Admiral, we're detecting massive fleet movements. All 6 species have ships heading toward human territories." The truth became crystal clear. This wasn't a response to evidence. This was a coordinated military operation that had been planned in advance. The aliens hadn't just fabricated evidence against humans. They had used the council sessions to study human defenses, learn about colony locations, and prepare for a simultaneous strike against every human settlement. 12 years, Kate said quietly, looking around the chamber. 12 years of friendship and cooperation. And this is how it ends. The Zephyrian speaker's form rippled again. Friendship was never the objective. Study and assessment were required. Before final judgment, Kate realized that every moment of trust, every shared discovery, every act of cooperation had been a lie from the alien perspective. Humans had been specimens being observed, threats being evaluated, problems waiting for a solution. "The vote is unanimous," Logician Prime Zeth announced. "All human populations will be contained within 72 hours. Resistance will be met with appropriate force." Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the chamber where she had spent years building what she thought was lasting peace. Around her, 6 alien species that she had considered friends and allies had revealed themselves as captors and judges. The golden age of human expansion was over. The trap had been sprung, and humanity was about to learn what it meant to be truly alone among the stars. Colonel Steve Adams watched the Vorthak fleet drop out of hyperspace above New Eden like falling stars against the dawn sky. 20 massive ships arranged themselves in perfect geometric patterns, their weapon ports already glowing with charge buildup. Steve had been expecting this moment since Admiral Sullivan's emergency transmission 3 hours ago, but seeing it happen still felt like a nightmare. "All units, this is command," Steve spoke into his communicator. "Execute defensive positions, now." New Eden was a farming colony with 12,000 human settlers. They had built a peaceful life among golden wheat fields and crystal-clear rivers, never imagining they would need to fight for their freedom. But every human colony maintained basic defenses, just in case pirates or raiders showed up. Those defenses seemed laughably small against a Vorthak war fleet. The farming machines in the fields stopped their work as colonists ran for underground shelters. Children who had been playing in the fields moments ago now hid in their parents' arms. These people had never seen war, never experienced violence beyond the occasional accident or natural disaster. "Colonel Adams," came the voice of Captain Mary Bell from the orbital defense platform. "Their lead ship is broadcasting a surrender demand. They want all humans to report to landing zones for immediate transport." Steve looked through his binoculars. At the first Vorthak landing ships descending toward the colony, the aliens moved with mechanical precision, their forces deploying in textbook formation. They had done this before, probably many times. "Tell them we refuse," Steve said. "New Eden doesn't surrender." The response came quickly. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, vaporizing the colony's communication tower and power plant. The attacks were surgical, designed to disable rather than destroy. The Vorthak wanted their prisoners alive. Steve's defensive forces numbered 300 volunteers with basic training and farming equipment converted into weapons. Against them came 2,000 Vorthak soldiers in powered armor, supported by hover tanks and combat drones. The outcome was predetermined, but Steve refused to make it easy. The battle lasted 6 hours. Human defenders used their knowledge of the terrain to slow the Vorthak advance, hiding in irrigation ditches and using farm buildings for cover. They destroyed 3 alien vehicles and damaged several others before being overwhelmed by superior technology and numbers. When Steve finally surrendered, half his people were wounded and the rest were exhausted. The Vorthak commander, a tall figure in gleaming armor, studied the human prisoners with calculating eyes. "Resistance was illogical," the commander stated. "Outcome was predetermined. Human behavior continues to defy rational analysis." Steve spat blood from his cut lip. "Maybe that's because we're not machines like you." The Vorthak seemed genuinely puzzled by the response. They loaded the human prisoners onto transport ships with efficient brutality, separating families and treating the colonists like dangerous cargo rather than people. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as alien fleets struck every human settlement simultaneously. The research station at Wolf 359 fell to the Nexari in 4 hours. The trading post at Rigel was overrun by Sauridian Marines in 2. Colony after colony reported desperate final transmissions before going silent. On Europa, Dr. Helen Ross managed to send one last message to Earth before the Delphian fleet surrounded her facility. Her voice crackled through space, carrying the truth that would change everything. "Earth Control, this is Europa Research Station. We are under attack by Council forces. They didn't just betray us. They planned this from the beginning. We were never partners. We were cattle being fattened for slaughter. They've been studying us for 12 years, learning our weaknesses, mapping our colonies. This was always their plan. Tell everyone. Tell Earth. Make them pay for what they've done." The transmission cut off as Delphian forces boarded the station. Dr. Ross and her team of 40 researchers became prisoners like thousands of other humans across the galaxy. The alien prison ships were nightmares of efficiency. Humans were packed into cargo holds like livestock, given minimal food and water, watched constantly by automated systems. Families were deliberately separated to prevent organization and resistance. Children cried for parents they would never see again. The Zephyrian prison ship Harmony carried 5,000 human prisoners in conditions that barely met the definition of survival. The collective mind that controlled the ship viewed humans as a disease to be contained rather than people to be cared for. Prisoners received nutrition paced twice a day and 4 hours of sleep in rotating shifts. Captain Elena Stone, formerly of the merchant ship Bright Star, found herself locked in a cell with 30 other humans from different colonies. The aliens had mixed populations to prevent any single group from organizing effectively, but they had underestimated human adaptability. "They think they know us," Elena whispered to her cellmates. 12 years of study, and they think they understand what humans are capable of. An elderly farmer named Frank Miller nodded grimly. "They studied us during peacetime. They never saw us angry." The prison ships delivered their human cargo to massive containment facilities built on airless moons and barren asteroids. The aliens had constructed these prisons months in advance, another sign that the betrayal had been planned long before any evidence was presented to the Council. The Nexari facility on Titan's moon Rhea held 20,000 humans in crystalline, cells that absorbed sound and prevented communication. The ethereal prison existed partially in another dimension, causing constant disorientation among its human inmates. The Sauridian camps were designed like gladiatorial arenas, as if the reptilian species expected their prisoners to fight each other for entertainment. But the worst were the Vorthak facilities. Perfectly logical and completely inhuman, they processed prisoners with mechanical efficiency. Every human was cataloged, measured, studied, and filed away like a specimen in a laboratory. The Vorthak seemed genuinely confused by human emotional responses to imprisonment, treating tears and anger as inexplicable malfunctions. Days passed in the prisons as humans adapted to their new reality. The aliens had successfully captured every human settlement in the galaxy within 72 hours, just as they had promised. Millions of people who had been free citizens of a galactic civilization were now prisoners of the species they had, trusted as friends. The alien leaders congratulated themselves on a perfect operation. They had neutralized the human threat before it could develop, contained a dangerous species before it could fulfill its aggressive potential, and restored galactic security through decisive action. But they had made one critical error in their calculations. They had studied humans during 12 years of peace and prosperity, observing a species that was content and cooperative. They had never witnessed humanity under threat. They had never seen what humans became when their families were endangered and their freedom was stolen. On Earth, the last free human world in the galaxy, news of the systematic imprisonment of millions of humans triggered something the aliens had never encountered in their thousands of years of civilization. They had awakened something that evolution had forged in humanity through millions of years of survival on a hostile world. They had provoked the most dangerous predator their galaxy had ever produced. The age of human rage was about to begin. President Carol Lewis stood before the emergency session of the United Earth Assembly as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Every screen in the chamber showed the same devastating truth. Millions of humans had been imprisoned by their supposed allies in a coordinated betrayal that spanned dozens of star systems. "They took our children," President Lewis said, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. "They took our scientists, our farmers, our teachers, our families. They took everyone we sent to the stars in friendship and locked them away like criminals." General Paul Clark stepped forward with data tablets containing military assessments. As Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, Paul had spent his career preparing for threats from unknown alien species. He had never imagined the greatest threat would come from allies. "The alien fleets used our own navigation data against us," Paul reported. "Every human colony location, every trade route, every defensive position. We gave them this information, freely over 12 years of cooperation." Dr. Nathan Cruz, head of Earth's weapons development programs, activated a holographic display showing technical schematics. For 12 years, his research teams had focused on peaceful applications of human technology. Mining equipment, construction tools, scientific instruments. The aliens had seen humans as a gentle species focused on building rather than destroying. "They made a mistake," Dr. Crew said quietly. "They studied us during peacetime. They never asked what humans are capable of when we go to war." The assembly voted unanimously for something that had never existed in human history: complete planetary unity under a single military command. Every nation, every government, every human organization on Earth joined together with one purpose. The political divisions that had defined humanity for centuries vanished in the face of a greater enemy. General Paul Clark became Supreme Commander of the largest military force Earth had ever assembled. Within hours, every factory on the planet began converting to weapons production. Every shipyard started building warships. Every laboratory began developing tools of destruction that humans had only theorized about during their peaceful years in the Council. The aliens had observed human technology for 12 years, but they had only seen what humans chose to share. They knew about human agriculture, medicine, and basic engineering. They had never seen human weapons technology because humans had never needed to build weapons while under Council protection. Dr. Nathan Cruz revealed projects that had existed only as theoretical exercises: quantum disruptor missiles that could tear apart matter at the subatomic level, gravity bombs that could collapse stars, reality-shearing warheads that violated the basic laws of physics. Human scientists had imagined these weapons during idle moments, never thinking they would need to build them. "The Vorthak think logically," Dr. Cruz explained to the military commanders. "They believe they understand our capabilities based on their observations. They never considered that humans might be hiding our true potential." Captain Elena Stone's voice reached Earth through a smuggled transmission from the Zephyrian prison ship. Her message was simple but devastating. "They're treating us like animals, but they've never seen what animals do when they're cornered." The first human breakout occurred on the Nexari facility at Rhea. A group of prisoners led by mechanic Tony Garcia discovered that the crystalline cells could be disrupted by creating harmonic vibrations using improvised tools. What started as an escape attempt became something more when the humans realized their captors were terrified of them. The Nexari guards had never fought anyone before. Their species had achieved peace through crystal technology that controlled matter at the atomic level, making physical violence obsolete in their society. But their crystals were useless against humans who moved unpredictably, thought irrationally, and fought with a desperation the Nexari couldn't understand. The humans exhibit combat behaviors not observed during peaceful contact, the Nexari facility commander reported to his superiors. They coordinate attacks without visible communication. They sacrifice themselves to protect others. They continue fighting despite logical disadvantage. Similar reports came from prisons across the galaxy. The Delphian aquatic facilities couldn't contain humans who proved capable of holding their breath longer than expected and swimming in ways that disrupted water-based technology. The ethereal dimensional prisons discovered that human consciousness somehow resisted phase shifting in ways that made containment unstable. But the most shocking reports came from the Sauridian gladiatorial facilities. The reptilian species had expected humans to fight each other for alien entertainment, following the patterns they had observed in other imprisoned species. Instead, the humans organized themselves into protective groups and began studying their captors' weaknesses. "The humans refused to fight each other," reported General Krex of the Sauridian military. "Instead, they worked together to resist our control. This behavior contradicts all previous observations of conquered species." Back on Earth, the military buildup continued at a pace that amazed even the humans themselves. Shipyards that had taken months to build a single exploration vessel now produced warships in weeks. Factories designed for consumer goods retooled overnight to manufacture weapons of unprecedented destructive power. Fleet Commander Mary Bell took command of humanity's first true battle fleet. These weren't the exploration ships humans had used during their peaceful expansion. These were vessels designed for one purpose: war against technologically superior enemies. "The aliens have better technology," Commander Bell addressed her captains. "But they've never fought a species that learned warfare by fighting itself for thousands of years. They've never faced an enemy that treats war as a natural state rather than an aberration. The human fleet that assembled around Earth was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ship designs incorporated lessons learned from millions of years of evolution on a hostile world. They were redundant, adaptable, and built to function even when severely damaged. Most importantly, they were crewed by a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history as predators." Dr. Sam Mitchell, a psychologist who had studied alien behavior patterns, briefed the military commanders on their enemies' weaknesses. "The Vorthak follow logical patterns. The Zephyrians require mental coordination. The Delphians depend on water-based technology. Every species has adapted to peaceful coexistence, making them vulnerable to tactics they've never encountered," Sadin. Lewis made the final decision to launch humanity's counterattack. "They wanted to see what humans are capable of when threatened. They're about to find out." The order went out to every human facility in the galaxy: resist, escape, fight back. The aliens had imprisoned millions of humans thinking they were containing a threat. Instead, they had placed their most dangerous enemies inside their own facilities, surrounded by the technology and information humans would need to destroy them. As Earth's war fleet prepared to depart, reports continued arriving from the prisons. Human breakouts were spreading across multiple facilities. Alien guards who had never experienced combat were abandoning their posts rather than face human prisoners who fought like cornered animals. The aliens had made one final critical mistake. They had assumed that 12 years of peaceful cooperation meant humans were naturally peaceful. They never realized that human cooperation was a choice, not a limitation. When that choice was taken away, what remained was the most successful predator species in galactic history, now focused on a single objective: the complete destruction of everyone who had betrayed them. The galaxy was about to learn why human rage should never be provoked. Admiral Tony Garcia led the human fleet as it emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Vorthak home system. 50 Earth warships arranged themselves in attack formation, their hulls bristling with weapons that violated every galactic treaty ever written. The ships moved with purpose and coordination that made alien observers realize they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. "All ships, this is Admiral Garcia," Tony spoke into the fleet communication system. "Remember what they did to our people. Remember the families torn apart, the children imprisoned, the trust betrayed. Today we show them what human rage looks like." The Vorthak defense fleet responded with mathematical precision. Their ships, forming geometric patterns designed for maximum efficiency. Logician Prime Zeth himself commanded the defense from his flagship, confident that superior technology and logical tactics would easily defeat the primitive human vessels. "Human emotional responses will lead to tactical errors," Zeth calculated, aloud to his bridge crew. "Their anger will cloud their judgment. Victory probability, 97.3%. The first exchange of fire proved him wrong. Human ships didn't follow standard battle patterns. They moved unpredictably, using maneuvers that made no logical sense, but somehow worked. Captain Kelly Murphy's destroyer performed a spiral dive. That should have been suicide, but instead brought her ship inside the Vorthak formation, where her close-range weapons could devastate multiple targets. "Their tactics are irrational," reported a Vorthak tactical officer. "We cannot predict their movement patterns." Admiral Garcia smiled grimly as he watched alien ships struggle to adapt to human warfare. "That's because we don't fight with logic. We fight with instinct." While the space battle raged, human ground forces led by Captain Peter Young struck at Vorthak infrastructure across their homeworld. These weren't invasion forces designed to occupy territory. They were liberation forces with one objective: free every human prisoner and destroy everything else. The ground campaign terrified the Vorthak more than the space battle. Human soldiers moved through their cities like ghosts, appearing where logic said they shouldn't be, striking targets that seemed random but somehow crippled Vorthak communications and supply lines. Dr. Sam Mitchell's psychological warfare teams had studied each alien species for months, identifying specific fears and weaknesses that could be exploited. The Vorthak prided themselves on order and predictability, so humans attacked with chaos and unpredictability. Vorthak soldiers found themselves facing enemies who ignored established rules of warfare. Human combat doctrine appears to embrace acceptable losses, reported Vorthak General Zek as his forces retreated from another human assault. They sacrifice units to achieve objectives that provide no logical advantage. What the Vorthak couldn't understand was that humans weren't sacrificing themselves randomly. Every human who died in combat did so to save imprisoned colonists or to gather intelligence that would help other human forces. The apparent chaos was actually a complex strategy that alien minds couldn't comprehend. Captain Elena Stone led a breakout from the RIA facility that became a masterpiece of human tactical thinking, using improvised weapons and knowledge gained from 12 years of observing alien technology. Her team didn't just escape. They captured the facility and turned it into a base for liberating other prisons. The humans exhibit pack-hunting behaviors, reported Nexari Commander Vel, as his crystal ships fell back from Elena's forces. Individual units coordinate without visible communication patterns. They anticipate each other's actions in ways our analysis cannot explain. Similar victories occurred across the galaxy, as human forces demonstrated capabilities that alien species had never observed during peacetime. The Delphian water worlds discovered that humans could fight effectively in aquatic environments, using modified equipment and tactics that turned the aliens' natural advantage against them. Fleet Commander Mary Bell's task force surrounded the ethereal prison facility, which existed partially in another dimension. The ethereals had assumed their phase-shifting technology made them invulnerable to physical attack. They were wrong. Human consciousness appears to function across dimensional barriers, the ethereal collective reported in growing panic. They can perceive and target our phased forms. This should be impossible for three-dimensional beings. The truth was simpler than the aliens realized. Humans had spent millions of years as persistence hunters, tracking prey across vast distances, using intuition and pattern recognition that operated below conscious thought. Those same abilities allowed them to detect and fight enemies that other species couldn't even see. The Sauridian military, supposedly the most warlike of the alien species, suffered perhaps the greatest shock. Their generals had studied human behavior for 12 years and concluded that humans were naturally passive and cooperative. The reality of human warfare shattered every assumption they had made. "They fight like we did in the ancient times," General Krex reported as his forces retreated from their third defeat in 2 days. "Before we learned civilization, before we abandoned the old ways, they fight like predators who remember what it means to hunt." Dr. Nathan Cruz's weapons performed beyond all expectations. The quantum disruptor missiles tore through alien shields like they didn't exist. The gravity bombs collapsed entire space stations with single shots. The reality-shearing warheads deleted alien ships from existence in ways that violated basics, physics. But the most effective human weapon wasn't technological. It was psychological. Every alien species discovered that fighting humans was unlike anything they had experienced. Human warriors continued fighting when logic said they should surrender. They performed impossible rescues to save single individuals. They coordinated complex operations through nothing more than shared understanding of human nature. "We cannot predict their behavior patterns," Logician Prime Zeth admitted, as his flagship limped away from another human victory. "They operate outside logical parameters. They sacrifice efficiency for emotional objectives. They choose tactics that benefit others rather than themselves. As human forces swept across the galaxy, liberating prison after prison, the alien species began to realize the magnitude of their mistake. They had studied humans during 12 years of peace and prosperity, observing a species that was content and cooperative. They had never witnessed humanity under threat. Commander Peter Young stood in the ruins of a Vorthak prison facility, watching the last human captives board rescue ships. Around him, alien technology burned as humans systematically destroyed everything their former allies had built. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," Peter ordered his communication officer. "Tell them we're coming for them next." The officer smiled as he sent the transmission. "Message away, Commander. Should I include casualty figures?" Peter looked at the liberation statistics on his tactical display. In 3 weeks of fighting, human forces had freed over 2 million prisoners while losing fewer than 10,000 soldiers. The aliens were discovering that humans were not just individually dangerous, but collectively unstoppable when properly motivated. "No need for numbers," Peter replied. "They can count their own losses." Across the galaxy, alien governments received reports that confirmed their worst fears. The humans hadn't just broken out of their prisons. They had turned the tables completely, capturing alien facilities and using them as bases for further operations. What had begun as containment had become conquest. The species that had betrayed humanity's trust were learning what it meant to face human rage unleashed. And the worst part, from their perspective, was that the humans were clearly just getting started. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the council chamber where he had once worked as a diplomat, but now he wore the uniform of a human war commander. Around him, the 6 alien representatives sat in their designated seats, but their postures had changed completely. Where once they had projected confidence and authority, now they radiated fear and defeat. The chamber itself bore the scars of human assault. Burn marks from plasma weapons decorated the walls. Several of the alien technology displays had been destroyed during the fighting. Most significantly, human soldiers now stood guard at every entrance, ensuring that the former captors had become the captives. Fleet Commander Mary Bell reported the final statistics of the human counterattack. "All human prisoners have been liberated from alien facilities. Our forces control 17 star systems previously held by Council species. Enemy fleet strength has been reduced by 73% across all 6 species," Admiral Tony Garcia added his own report. "The Vorthak homeworld has surrendered unconditionally. The Nexari crystal matrix has been disrupted, leaving their civilization unable to coordinate defense. Delphian water worlds are under human occupation. Sauridian military command has requested terms for ceasefire." Jake looked at each alien representative in turn. Logician Prime Zeth sat rigidly in his chair, his logical mind apparently unable to process how completely his calculations had failed. The Zephyrian Collective's speaker rippled with patterns that human analysts had learned indicated extreme distress. The other aliens appeared equally devastated by the swift and total reversal of their fortunes. "You wanted to see what humans are capable of when threatened," Jake said quietly. "Now you know." The ethereal representative materialized more solidly than usual, as if fear had forced them into a more stable dimensional state. "Human warfare capabilities exceeded all projections. Our analysis was fundamentally flawed." Dr. Lisa Carter, who had once studied alien species as friends and partners, now examined them as defeated enemies. "You studied us for 12 years, but you only saw what we chose to show you. You never understood that human cooperation is a choice, not a limitation." General Paul Clark stepped forward with a data tablet containing the terms of human victory. His expression showed no mercy for the species that had betrayed humanity's trust. "The terms are simple and non-negotiable. Complete reparations for all human losses during your betrayal. Immediate withdrawal from all territories claimed through this conflict. Recognition of human dominance in galactic military affairs." The Sauridian general, whose own species had once prided itself on military prowess, spoke with obvious difficulty. Human combat abilities surpass all known standards. Resistance would result in species extinction. Jake activated the chamber's main display, showing star maps that illustrated the new galactic reality. Human forces now controlled the most strategic locations in known space. The alien species that had once commanded vast interstellar empires were reduced to managing their remaining homeworlds under human oversight. "There's something else you need to understand," Jake continued. "We didn't fight this war to conquer you. We fought it because you forced us to. But now that it's over, things will never go back to the way they were." Commander Peter Young, still bearing scars from the liberation campaigns, addressed the alien leaders directly. "For 12 years, you pretended to be our friends while planning our imprisonment. You studied our children, cataloged our families, and prepared to destroy everything we had built among the stars." The Delphian ambassador floated in their water tank, their aquatic form moving with what humans had learned to recognize as expressions of deep regret. Deception was perceived as necessary for galactic security. Human potential was deemed threatening to established order. Dr. Nathan Cruz, whose weapons had proven devastatingly effective against alien technology, displayed holographic images of the destruction wrought by human forces. "You were right to be afraid of human potential, but your fear led you to make the worst possible choice. Instead of continuing to work with us, you tried to eliminate us." President Carol Lewis appeared on the communication screen, addressing the defeated council from Earth. "The galaxy will have peace, but it will be peace on human terms. We will maintain order, but we will do it our way. Any species that threatens human civilians again will face complete annihilation." The terms presented to the alien species were harsh but not impossible. They would maintain their homeworlds and core territories, but under human supervision. Their military capabilities would be permanently reduced to prevent future threats. Most importantly, they would provide resources and labor to rebuild every human colony they had damaged during their betrayal. Logician Prime Zeth finally spoke, his logical mind apparently having processed the new reality. "Human dominance is now mathematically certain. Resistance calculations indicate probability of success approaching 0. Terms are acceptable to prevent species extinction." The other alien representatives voiced similar acceptances, each in the manner of their species. The Zephyrian collective agreed through pattern consensus. The Nexari submitted through crystal resonance. The Ethereals phased their agreement across dimensional barriers. The Delphians flowed their consent through aquatic motion. The Sauridians surrendered with military formality. Jake Morrison, who had once served as humanity's diplomat to these same beings, now stood as their conqueror. "The age of equal partnership is over. Humans will maintain galactic peace, but we'll do it as the dominant species. You've seen what happens when human trust is betrayed. Make sure it never happens again." Fleet Commander Mary Bell announced the new galactic order. "Human patrol fleets will monitor all space lanes. Human bases will be established in every major star system. Human law will supersede local authority in matters of interspecies conflict." The transformation was complete. In less than 2 months, humanity had gone from imprisoned victims to galactic overlords. The species that had betrayed them now served as subordinates in a new order built on the foundation of human military supremacy. Dr. Lisa Carter, reflecting on the changes, made a final observation. "You taught us something important about the galaxy. Trust is a luxury that only the strong can afford. Weakness invites betrayal. From now on, humanity will never be weak again." As the council session ended, human forces throughout the galaxy continued their work of establishing the new order. The golden age of cooperation and shared discovery was over, replaced by an iron age of human dominance, enforced through superior military power. The aliens had gotten exactly what they feared most: a galaxy ruled by human capabilities unleashed. but they had brought it upon themselves through their own betrayal and miscalculation. Jake Morrison took one last look around the council chamber before departing. Let this day be remembered not just as the day you faced human rage, but as the day you learned why it should never be provoked again. The galaxy would have peace, but it would be a peace imposed by the species that had proven itself to be the most dangerous predator among the stars. Humanity had found its true place in the Galactic Order, and that place was at the top.